The National College Football holiday known as Signing Day is almost upon us, but should OU and OSU be celebrating? From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Mike Sherman, and this is the Bedlam Nation Conversation. Here to talk about all things recruiting are OU beat writer Jake Trotter and OSU beat writer Scott Wright. Guys, let's jump right in. The Cowboys and Sooners are going to present their recruiting class of 2009 on Wednesday. First, who's the big catch for the Sooners, Jake?
Well, they got a lot of good commitments, a lot of four-star guys, Jamarcus McFarland, namely a defensive tackle. But I think the biggest impact they're going to have, at least for next year, is Cameron Kinney, the wide receiver out of Garden City. Chose the Sooners over Georgia. He's a guy that can come in and start right away at wide receiver and give them an outside threat to complement Ryan Broyles and Jermaine Gresham, who are more inside players.
And that's recent, and they need wide receivers.
Exactly. It was a big commitment because then if you don't get Kenny, all you have is Jazz Reynolds at wide receiver after Eric Ward, basically the slot receiver, decommitted from OU and committed to Texas Tech. So now they have an outside threat. They have a lot of young wide receivers, all unproven, and it just gives them another guy a little older who maybe can come in right away and give Sam Bradford another target.
Wasn't there some unrest in Sooner Nation about the lack of big-time wide receiver commitments just a week or two ago?
Well, yeah, anytime you have a decommitment, and that's going to happen every year, but they came back and got a guy that was probably better than the one they had before, although I've heard a lot of good things about Eric Ward. I think we'll hear from him at Texas Tech in a couple of years. It's a perfect system for him. But Kenny's a guy who can line up at wide receiver, go up and get the jump ball, go downfield, and that's a place where they really had a void after losing Joaquin Iglesias and Manny Johnson. Okay,
Scott, who's the big catch for the Cowboys?
Well, I think you have to look at two guys right now. Anthony Morgan is short term, the big catch. He's probably the guy on this in this signing class most likely to come in and start next year and really make an impact. A big guy that'll fill right in that left guard spot, I think, next to Russell Okung, and make that left side of that offensive line really dangerous, really powerful. Long term, I think Dexter Pratt is a guy, having talked to some people who have watched this kid and coached this kid, he has the potential to be a really special guy at running back. 6'2", 220 pounds, runs really well, runs really hard. He's different than the other kind of backs that Oklahoma State has on campus right now. So he can provide something a little bit different in a powerful way. I think that down the line you're going to hear a lot from him.
I was going to ask you, last year at this time the big catch in some people's mind was Bo Johnson, the running back, junior college running back. How is this guy different?
Pratt is a lot bigger, a lot stronger runner. Bo Johnson, I think, is while he's a strong runner, he's more of a smaller guy. In the 5'10", 5'11" kind of 200-pound range. He's a different kind of strong, I think. This is a guy that's built in that NFL prototypical running back kind of body in Dexter Pratt. So, more of a straight ahead runner. Bo Johnson is a guy that can kind of move around a little bit. And unfortunately for him, it's going to be tough for him to even get back on the field this year behind Keith Toston and Kittle Hunter.
It sounds like with his left guard, the Cowboys' offensive line remains strong.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're most likely going to see Andrew Lewis move back to center where he had played when David Washington was hurt. That you move Morgan in at that left guard, and then find another guy to play that right guard spot, and you've got a really pretty solid line with both tackles already coming back.
Hey guys, let's talk about sleepers now. Who's the big sleeper for OSU first, Scott?
I think Colton Richardson out of Ada is a kid that we're going to hear a lot from during his career at Oklahoma State. Maybe not this year, because coming in at linebacker, Oklahoma State has 3 seniors starting this year in 2009, so he's not going to get a chance to come in this year and make an impact. But down the line, the kid's 6'4", 220 right now. He's still growing. He was only about 200 pounds, last summer when he came into his senior year. He's really bulked up quite a bit and could continue to grow. He runs somewhere between a 4.5 and a 4.6 40. So the kid moves pretty well. He was a guy that was really under the radar as far as a lot of teams. His only previous visits had been, I think, Northern Iowa and Tulsa before Oklahoma State came up with a scholarship offer. So this is a kid that was really under the radar, but has the tools, I think, to be a big time linebacker.
How's a guy from Ada which produced a ton of great college and high school football players. A lot of them going to OU. How's a guy like that fly under the radar?
It's really kind of surprising. I don't know if if Ada has they're not the same type of program that they were when they were really dominating high school football down there. But still, this guy, I think he played safety as a junior. Was maybe a little bit too big as a safety, and maybe not quite as quick as some of the other safeties that he was being compared to. But once he moved to linebacker, I think things really took off for him.
Okay, Jake, who's a Sooner sleeper?
We've got a couple guys. He's a 4-star guy, so I don't know if you can call him a sleeper, but Javon Harris, when he was offered by Oklahoma, was one of their first commitments. Nobody really even heard of him. Even in our state, we knew about him, but not at the caliber of some of the other in-state stars. But he's a guy that's really blossomed, will come up and stick you. He's a strong safety, maybe an outside linebacker type, a la Nick Harris. And Oklahoma's really stockpiling a lot of talented safeties. When you talk about Kevin Brent, another guy they're bringing in, there they have Sam Proctor, Quentin Carter coming back, and then Ibale from Texas as well, who redshirted this past year. So they got a lot of very good young safeties. Another guy too, Terry Franklin, who didn't even play varsity football the past couple of years in Mansfield at Legacy Mansfield, I think is the name of the high school. They're just starting up their football program, so he hasn't had a chance to really play against Division I competition, but he's very athletic, very talented, and another guy that OU offered that was kind of out of nowhere early on in the recruiting process. He's a guy that'll redshirt, but a couple years down the line has a chance to make an impact.
What are the Sooners out there still trolling for?
Well, they're looking at receivers and linemen. They got a lineman today, apparently out of Mississippi. Tavares Jeffries, I think is his name. 6'4", 330, can play tackle or guard. They're trying to stockpile as much offensive line depth as possible, and that's why you see a lot of these, when they're going JUCO wide receivers and linemen, guys that can come in and maybe make an immediate impact. Wide receivers, they're looking at Terry Hawthorne out of East St. Louis, who is a talented player, deep threat, who's looking at Illinois and Oklahoma and probably going to announce on signing day which way he's going. Ruben Randall, the #1 receiver in the country, who at one point was looking at Oklahoma State until they lost the assistant coaches, is another guy OU's trying to get in on. He's out of Louisiana, and I think he's looking at LSU among some other places. So Auburn too now. So those are their two remaining targets, the big guys. Another guy maybe they're looking at is Pearly Graves, a defensive tackle out of Tulsa East Central, who I believe is committed to Michigan, but they're trying to steal a commitment late from him. And that's pretty much it. They got 21 commitments right now, 22 today, so they only have 3 left at the most, and I think those are the guys to look for in the next few days.
Scott, how about sleepers for the Cowboys?
As far as what's out there left, there's not a lot in the areas that they're targeting. So at the most, they're going to take one more guy. That'll get them to 24, and I don't think that they're going to have room for any more than that. They're already really going to be oversigned even at just 24 because of the number of scholarship players already on campus. It's going to have them over the 85 limit, which tells us probably there's somebody that was on the team last year that's not going to be back. Whether it's their own decision or what have you. So I think that then that final spot, maybe another linebacker, Joel Kite, Jonathan Evans, a couple of guys from SEC country that they've been in on. Evans is actually committed to Auburn, so I think that the Cowboys would kind of like to make that switch. The linebacker coach who was at Auburn has left and gone to Alabama, and so that's been the reason for Evans backing out of his commitment a little bit. But I think probably one of those two guys would get that last spot. Another guy by the name of Jarris Jones that could be a safety or a linebacker. I think that's probably the area where you see them target, unless something really crazy happened and they could land another defensive tackle. As far as young defensive tackles, they don't really have a lot on campus. They've got a couple of guys that redshirted last year that'll be pretty good. Nigel Nicholas and Jeremy Gray, but they don't have a high school defensive tackle in this class, unless one of these guys that's a defensive end can bulk up. So that's probably the area where if something really if they can make something happen, they'd probably like to get somebody there, or a wide receiver. They don't have a true wide receiver in this class either. They didn't lose anybody from last year's class, so it's not a huge necessity. But those are probably the areas that if they could get another guy, that's probably where they'd go.
My all-new Dodge Journey took me from a 400-square-foot studio apartment.
Call Mario. Hello? Yo, man, I'm on my way.
To a new crib downtown.
Play memo.
Staff meeting, 9:30.
Now this house is mine. The higher you go, the sweeter the journey. Introducing the crossover that's ready for anything. The all-new Dodge Journey. If you can dream it, do it.
Was there a great recruiting bedlam war this year? 2 years ago was Ryan Broyles. Was there, and could there still be, any kind of bedlam tussle over recruits, especially in-state?
I don't think there could be. A couple guys, really was early on when the battles were. Ronnell Lewis was a guy that was looking at both schools. Actually visited OU and OSU on the same day before committing to OU later on in that weekend. Gabe Lynn is another guy that both schools wanted. Lynn went to OU. And that might be it. I can't.
Brandon Webb was.
Brandon
was
Webb
the guy,
would be the other guy
obviously,
that
with
OSU got.
the father
Cowboys.
connection.
And the Cowboys won that one.
There were some reports out there that OU had tried to sneak in on Michael Bowie, the offensive lineman out of Sand Springs, who's committed to Oklahoma State after first committing to Kansas State, then Texas Tech. So I guess they were trying to make it.
Yeah, there was an interesting
there.
rumor that James Patton, the offensive line coach, was trying to recruit Bowie, and then OSU found out about it and said, hey, you want your commitment here, you need to stay firm to us. So that kind of died out pretty quickly.
Okay, guys, let's hand out some grades. Based on what you know right now, how do you grade the recruiting class? Jake, first OU.
Well, it doesn't have some of the star power maybe you've seen in some of the other Oklahoma classes. There's no Adrian Peterson in this group. There's no Rhett Bomar, if you want to look at recruiting guys who were highly rated out of high school. But they have a lot of very good, solid 4-star and 3-star guys. It's a very deep class on the defensive side of the ball. They got every position covered, from defensive tackle to defensive back. So I would give it a B plus in that range. Not an A, but it is a B and B plus range. And I think they'll be rated probably in the 8 to 14 range nationally when the recruiting final rankings are said and done next week.
Scott, the Cowboys grade.
Now, I'm going to give the Cowboys a low A in what they did. Now, I'm not saying that their class is better. We'll see where it falls out by the recruiting services. I think that this is a top 25 class that Mike Gundy has put together. But he gets the A because he filled the needs that he has. He got guys at safety and cornerback that look like they can come in and contribute early on. He got an offensive lineman where they had a big need. He got a quarterback, which was something that they don't need next year, but 2 years from now they're going to be looking for the next Zach Robinson. He went out and filled a lot of needs. He did really well in state, probably the best that he's done. Definitely the best that he's done, and one of the best years for Oklahoma State on in-state recruiting in several years, landing 3 of the top 6 players in the state. Getting both needs filled and playmakers. I think that Mike Gundy's had a heck of a year recruiting.
And one thing too, Oklahoma got a lot of good in-state kids too. They only had 3 last year. One of them was a kicker, Tressway from Tulsa. But Javon Harris, Ronnell Lewis are a couple of the big time. Gus Jones is another linebacker from in-state. I think they ended up with 5 in-state kids, and they're all quality players, guys that could come in and play at some point.
Hey, thanks, guys. That's all for us for now, but you can continue the debate at bedlamnation.com, the only fan website geared to both OU and OSU fans.
Let's see it.